Hello students and welcome back. Today I am going to talk about the legal battles of the Devdasis. As you all know, Devdasi women were charming, intelligent, mingled with an ethnic style and an attractive personality. They were accomplished artists who were dedicated to sing and dance in the temples. Devdasis is believed the ultimate manifestation of bhakti is to serve God as a slave and perform certain functions, both artistic and social. The talent and flair for music and dance were very natural for them. They were proud of their artistic legacy. Yes, and they were allowed to lead the god's procession because they were considered to be auspicious omen. The kings, priests, and the noblemen enjoyed them and gave a respectable position in society. The Nayaks and the Marathas in South India supported the best of the artists. The decline of the court dancers began as early as the 18th century. The British domain entered strong into South. The royalty declined in power and prestige. All the artists, craftsmen, scholars, and poets were affected by the political change. They were deprived of mere sustenance. Very few of them survived the downfall because of their courage and extraordinary talent. As the years passed, the position of the Devdasi saw a slow decline in the society. With the fall of the royal patronage, their art suffered an eclipse. When they were forced to satisfy the vulgar passions of their patrons, their art also acquired a disreputable character and became synonymous with prostitution. The community was led to abuse and thereupon to an abolition of the system. Over the years, dance and Devdasis became synonymous with such an extent that reformers targeted to abolish the dance along with the Devdasis. Most of the families moved to Madras Presidency and some to the other parts of Tamil Nadu. The men from the community became dance teachers and the ladies married and settled as housewives. The battle. The first anti-Nautch blow struck in 1893. The newspaper Hindu condemned the practice of Nautch performances held for visiting dignitaries to the Madras Presidency. The paper appealed to the dignitaries to boycott such Nautch parties. The anti-Nautch movement was on the way to achieving its goal. For example, the abolishment of the practice of dedicating girls to the temple service and the performance of dance in temples and other places. An organization known as the Hindu Social Reform Movement handed a memorandum to this effect to the governor. The movement was highly condemned and the Nautch was flourishing as the only colorful entertainment available. In 1927, the Council of State in Delhi debated the motion of the Madras member that sought a ban on this practice of dedicating girls in temple to serve as Devdasis. In spite of the opposition from the law member, the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Act HRNCE was amended in 1929 to allow temples to do away with the duties of Devdasis in temple. The temples were forced to take back the lands, Manayam, that were given to the Devdasi. As a chain reaction, the wealthy patron also disowned all association with Devdasis. This put them into great crisis. Bangalore Nagaratnamma, a Devdasi who was then an eminent personality with high-level contacts, they came together and put up a fight under her leadership and formed the Madras Devdasi Association. This movement eventually failed due to Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy's strong opposition. Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy was the first woman from this community to enter medical profession. She strongly felt that girls of her community should be relieved from slavery and get educated. She demanded a ban on the dancing in temples. This was opposed by E. Krishna Iyer, a lawyer who pleaded for the preservation of artistic tradition of music and dance. E. Krishna Iyer took the bold step of organizing a dance performance of young dancers from Tanjavur to prove his point that dance needed public support to survive as an art form. Gradually, many dancers got opportunity and recognition from the sabhas. Thus, dance moved out of the temples and away from ceremonial processions. The new wave and bold step gained popularity against the rapid reform led by Dr. Reddy. Viscount Joston, the governor of Madras, and Baron Erwin, the governor general, gave their assent to the bill on 13th May 1929. The provincial government was entrusted with the responsibility to have control over the management of the temple for the good of the public. With the help of the Act, the Devdasi community developed a sense of self-respect and dignity, and the community itself understood the evils of the system. The abolishment of the system. The public opinion was in favor of the abolition of the Devdasi system. Muthulakshmi Reddy introduced Prevention of Dedication of Hindu Temple Bill in the Madras Legislative Council on 24 January 1930. After making certain modifications by the Select Committee, the bill was circulated for the purpose of eliciting public opinion. At this juncture, the press in Tamil Nadu involved in propaganda for creating awareness and generating public opinion in favor of the bill. The newspaper published and circulated leaflet which contained the article of Muthulakshmi Reddy. The Tamil newspaper published their supporting stand of various organizations and associations for the bill regularly to seek other support and boost up the passing of the bill. The Tamil Dravidian political parties endorsed its full-fledged support to the bill. The Dravidian parties published an article based on spiritual research. In the article, it revealed that Sundarmurthy Nayanar, a Shaivite leader from the past, himself recognized the abolition of women dedication to the temples, and it raised a question why the modern Shaivites were not ready to accept the reform. This article created an overwhelming response amongst the public. At the same time, Margaret Cousins, Secretary of Women's India's Association, felt that there was no need for circulation of the bill. In support of this bill, the Indian Ladies magazine made public the resolution passed in the 5th All India Women's Conference meeting held at Madras in November 1930. It pleaded the people to boycott these temples where the Devdasi service was still admitted, and to prevent the dedication of girls to the temples by punishing the culprit. The announcement for boycotting the temples was a revolutionary move. The efforts of the press created support among the public for passing of the bill. Knowing that the government was prompted to take an urgent and effective step, in the mid-half of the 1930, the government of Madras issued an order to the effect that the dedication of women to the temple was abolished by law. The dedication of minor girls to the temples was considered a crime. In the same year, Travancore state also abolished the evil system. Even after the orders, it was not completely uprooted. With the support of the temple trustees, it was surviving in some areas. All India Women's Conference appealed to Hindu Religious Endowment Boards of Madras to call upon all trustees of the temple under its jurisdiction totally to eradicate the Devdasi service and the ceremony of dedication of girls in such temples by issuing an order. The newspaper wrote that the Devdasi system was bad omen for Hinduism. The existence of the evil would result in moral degradation of the youth, and this evil would bring shame to our country in the international arena. Before the issue of order, Muthulakshmi Reddy resigned from the council due to the arrest of Mahatma Gandhi. But she continued her work of the council for the above purpose. She wrote a letter to C. Rajgopalachari, the leader of Tamil Nadu Congress Committee. In the letter, she expressed that the dedication of girls to the temple was a social sin, exactly as growing palm trees for production of toddy. The Anand Bodhini newspaper allotted its column for publishing this letter. Rajgopalachari wrote that he was burdened with the independence movement and was unable to help in this effort. In the meantime, Maharaja of Bobbili, the premier of Madras Presidency, attended a public meeting in which the Devdasi women performed dance feat. Muthulakshmi Reddy criticized this occurrence. E. Krishna Iyer targeted her for her positive effort through reports. He said that the system should be allowed to exist until other girls would be trained to perform the dances. Hearing this, she criticized his view and questioned if he was willing to transform other girls to Devdasis. The Anand Bodhini paper supported her effort and requested the public to support. The paper pleaded the parents not to force their girls to the evil. On the other hand, the temple trustees did not care for the law. They conducted such Pottukottakal ceremonies in rural areas. The paper advised the public to leave the evil which was hated by Gandhi and eminent leaders of the country. It further added that to restrict many venereal diseases, strict measures should be taken against the evil. Mavalur Ramamurthy Ammal, born in a Devdasi family, came out from the evil, bravely fought for the abolition of the system. She worked for the well-being of the escaped Devdasis. She wrote a book, Dasikal Moosavelai Allathu Matti Petra Minar, The Treacherous Net of Devdasi or the Minor Grown Wise. In this book, she dealt with the lives and struggles of Devdasis. This book was a novel based on self-experience. It explained that the escaped Devdasis came forward to establish a social organization for the benefit of other Devdasis. The book brought mass awareness among the public. In an article in the paper, she asked a question if the dances and song would be necessary for gods in the temples. The orthodox Brahmins and priests argued that such ancestral art should continue in the temples. With the constant awareness in the papers, it created public support for the abolition of the evil. In the princely state of Pudukkottai, the Devdasi system was abolished by amending the Hindu law of inheritance so as to benefit the female heirs in the family. Public in general wholeheartedly welcomed the abolition. Soon a similar act was passed in the Madras Legislative Council as an amendment to the Hindu Religious Endowment Act. In spite of the law, it was very regrettable that even in the city temples, services by Devdasis was allowed. This was partly due to the non-interference policy of the government and partly due to the ignorance of the mass and the apathy of the so-called educated class. Thus, the papers asked its readers to be aware of the use of the existing laws regarding female emancipation. The press reproduced the presidential address of Muthulakshmi Reddy in the Andhra Desh Kalavantula conference held in Tenali on 13th August 1932. Her address elaborately discussed the evils and the Devdasi system, the legislative efforts taken to establish the evil, and the role of the public to be played in this issue. She strongly suggested that without the public support, a reform could not be made. She appealed to the mothers not to dedicate their female children to the Hindu temples. On August 7, 1939, a new bill related to the abolition of Devdasi system was introduced in the Madras Legislative Council by Ammamanna Raja. She requested to send the bill for the consideration of the Select Committee. But C. Rajgopalachari, the Premier of Madras Presidency, announced that the bill should be circulated for gathering public opinion. This opinion was widely criticized by the press. The bill had the provisions for the abolition of dedication of women, reorganization for the marriage of Devdasis, the property rights to the children on the Devdasis, and the arrangement for receiving their due share from the temple revenue even though they left their service. After public circulation, the bill was sent to the Select Committee consisting of 3 women and 5 men committee. Muthulakshmi Dikshit pointed out that the dedication of the girls over the age of 18 years was performed secretly. It exposed the failure of the Reform Act. She sought the support of the parents of the girls until the evil thoroughly abolished. She noted that the legislations would create external changes only, whereas the internal change could be created only by awareness. The newspaper brought out stories with photographs about pathetic situations of young girl forced into Pottukuttal ceremony and then to prostitution and later becoming victims of several diseases. This created a strong opinion against the evil. Most of the people expected that the bill would be passed earlier, but the Second World War put a hurdle on the way. All the efforts ended in vain. During the ministry of O.P. Ramasamy Reddiyar, another bill was introduced by Dr. Subrayan on 9 October 1947 in the Madras Legislative Assembly to abolish the Devdasi system. The bill was sent to Select Committee under the chairmanship of Mrs. Ammanna Raja. After the committee stayed, the bill became law on 17 January 1948 and called the Act 31 of 1947. It was also known as Madras Devdasi Prevention of Dedication Act 1947. According to the Act, all forms of Devdasi system were abolished in the Madras Presidency. Devdasi Abolition Act is an important social legislation regarding the emancipation of women. The reformers found a lot of difficulties to enact this legislation and implement. Even though the conservative press made negative efforts against the legislation, the majority of the papers defended them with social consciousness. Thus, the press justified the right things, persuaded the government for them, and stimulated the public for the noble cause regarding the emancipation of women. Many of the Devdasi's family left the temple town where they lived for generations. Some of the families migrated to other temple towns in search of patronage. The small towns quietly had them employed for the temple service. For example, the dancer Muthukani Ammal of Veeramamalai performed duties in the temple as well as dance during the festivals even after the bill was passed. Most of them moved to Madras in the late 19th century. Madras was the center of commerce and trading where prospects of new temple being built. They were allowed to live near the temple, become professional dancers and musicians. They continued their traditional lifestyle and sought patronage from rich and famous. The dance and music programs of the Devdasis became an integral part of the official and social gatherings of the British officials. The resourceful composers came up with lyrics combining Telugu and English or Tamil and English. Composer Shivaramamaya composed a Javali in Telugu and English in Karahapriya Raga. The last of the Devdasis were left only with their dance art. The court dance was stopped with the royal territories attached to the British rule. Ritual dances in the temples were banned. The only alternate was to perform on stage as kacheris like music kacheris. Many of the business aristocrats from Georgetown, Madras, rebuilt the temples and established traditional rituals in them. Many Devdasis family with long cultural lineage survived in the 20th century at Georgetown, Madras. Veena Dhanammal, with 8 generations behind her, Kanchipuram Dhanushkoti Ammal, with 5 generations to boast about, were some examples where families who made the best of the new patronage. Finally, the Devdasi system practiced for over many centuries in the Madras presidency and advocated the principle of liberating the victimized women Dasis from the cultural backwardness. The revivalists tried to present the idealistic view of the institution of Devdasi. According to their view, it was the model of the ancient temple dancers as pure, sacred, and chaste women as they were originally. They stressed that the dance of the Devdasis was a form of Natya Yoga that enhanced an individual's spiritual plane. The revivalists wanted to preserve the traditional form of Sadir dance by purifying it. As a consequence of purification, some modifications were introduced into the content of the dance. The revivalists mostly belonged to the Brahmin dominated theosophical circles. Many Brahmin girls started to learn the dance from Devdasis and Natuvanars. Pioneers like Madam H. P. Blavatsky and Colonel H. S. Olcott, the founder of the Theosophical movement, had undertaken an extensive tour of South India and propagated the revival of Devdasi institutions and associated art of the Sadir. They gained support from one section of the native elite. In 1882, the Theosophical Society of India had set up its headquarters in Adyar, Chennai, with the set goal of working towards restoration of India's ancient glory in art, science, and philosophy. The Theosophical Society Adyar provided necessary funds and support to Rukmini Devi Arundale to revive the spirituality of the dance art. She reappropriated the Devdasi dance traditions to a respectable position. For this, she brought in changes in the dance repertoire by excluding items perceived as erotic in their description of a deity. She also systemized the dance in a way that incorporated the extension and use of space associated with dance traditions such as ballet. The product of this transformation was Bharatnatyam, which she taught professionally at a school established by her in Madras called Kala Kshetra. A. Krishna Iyer, the votary of dance, learned the art and performed on stage with a female costume. He defended the dancer in an article published in the Tamil daily called Deenamani on 28 February 1948. He used every avenue to support the dance of the Devdasis. E. Krishna Iyer had his training in Bharatnatyam under Natyacharya Melatur Natesh Iyer. He founded and nurtured 2 leading institutions in Madras. He has to his credit the rustication of folk dances and music which due to long neglect were in danger of extinction. He conducted 2 folk dance festivals in Delhi and took the Tamil tradition to the capital. SPS Sarangpani Iyengar, with the help of Choklingam, founded the Institution of Fine Art to give training to youngsters in dance. P. Sammamurthy and V. Raghavan, occupants of the chair in music and Sanskrit respectively at the University of Madras, carried on an untiring propaganda through books and monographs to elevate the taste of the audience. In this task, they received considerable support from several organizations. The pressure of social changes made the Devdasis withdraw from the stage. They could not make a career as a teacher or a performer. Many of business aristocrats from Georgetown, Madras rebuilt the temples and established traditional rituals in them. Many Devdasi family with long cultural lineage survived in the 20th century at Georgetown, Madras. Veena Danammal, with 8 generations behind her, Kanchipuram Dhanushkoti Ammal, with 5 generations to boast about, were some fine examples who made the best of the new patronage. The Devdasi community was never a caste. The ladies were the mistress of other caste men. The offspring later called themselves as Isai Vellavar, means one who nurtures music. The women of the Devdasi community married musicians, dance teachers, politicians and businessmen and led a peaceful life. They never wanted to be reminded of their art, nor they taught the art to their children. Very few of them retained their art and passed on to their generation. Bala Saraswati, Mailapur Doraikannu Ammal, Mailapur Gauri Ammal, Kumbhakonam Bhanumati, Pandanallur Jayalakshmi, Tanjavur Rajlakshmi, Tanjavur Tilagam, Tiruvayur Gnanam, Ammanna Mani Ammal and Veena Danammal are some of the courageous and talented dancers who passed on the art to many students for prosperity. Any art, especially music and dance, depend heavily on patrons. In the yesteryears, it was the royal families and now it is the public. And the struggle of the dancers and the struggle of the Bharatanatyam dancers even continues till today. I hope you enjoyed the journey. Thank you.